I want to tell you that one of my favourite things is this. Look, it's a picture of a what? Yes? Okay, what do we call the eagle in Australia, our biggest one? That's it, Wedge-Tailed Eagle. Would you like to stick him up there? All right. This particular sketch, could you stand him up by getting that back leg out? Good. This particular sketch was done by my daughter about 24 or 5 years ago when she knew I loved eagles, and it wasn't just because I barracked for the West Coast Eagles, but that had something to do with it. But anyway, today we're going to talk about Wedge-Tailed Eagles. And to do that, whoops, just turn that on. We go. There we go. Okay, so now if you can see the screen, you'll be able to see my story I want to share with you as well. Can you see it at the back as well? You can either do the back one or the front one. Okay. All right, we're going to talk about Wedge-Tailed Eagles. And the first little short story I want to tell you is one that comes from up in the mountain there. That's the Wedge-Tailed Mountains behind. If you've sometimes driven up with Mum and Dad up to the Hunter or up to Cessnock, and you go past the Wedge-Tailed Mountains up there. Well, the Wedge-Tailed Mountains was a place where I spent quite a bit of time at one stage of my life. Used to love walking up there, used to love camping up there. And on this particular weekend, there were a group of us boys camping up in the Wedge-Tailed Mountains, and we had gone to, if you can see the middle part of that mountain range, we were walking right along the edge of that mountain range up there, sort of following around the edge and looking down into the Cessnock Valley. That's what it was looking like from up in the top of the mountains, looking down into this great plain below. What happens is that the winds come off the coast and they come in hard and they hit the mountain and they lift. Eagles love that. And here we were hiking along, and we'd come to this particular place here when we could see. Now, can you see, if you can't see it on this screen up there, you better have a look around this one here. It's a little bit closer to you. Can you see an eagle way up on the ridge, way down? Okay. Now, he's actually been put in artificially there, but you'll see why in a moment. And this eagle was coming along, and one of the boys in the group said, "Hey, look, way out there. Can you see that eagle?" And we all squinted. "Oh, yeah, look, we can just see it." And this is what the eagle was doing. You watch. What's he doing? Somersaults. Is that what you're going to say? Well, he wasn't actually. He was playing. He was having fun or showing off. I'm not quite sure which. Because do you know what he did? You want to see that again? Here, let's go a bit closer. Here he is over our heads now. And he kept doing this, going up and doing somersaults. And this went on for, have a guess how many somersaults he did, one after the other, just going down the range, using the wind and the updraft. He didn't flap his wings at all. He was just using the updraft wind, and he's going up and doing this big circle, along the ridge, up and doing a big circle. Have a guess how many somersaults he did. More. Oh, less. Okay, 11. I can still remember it, even though it was many years ago. 11 somersaults. And I was so excited about this. Fancy this. And he came right over our heads and was doing another somersault. And we almost felt, oh, you show off. But no, I think he was really being quite genuine, just enjoying the air. And later on, I found this proverb, which I thought was very appropriate for this day. There's a proverb in chapter 13, verses 18 and 19 that says, "The way of the eagle in the sky is too amazing for me." And I was quite stunned with what I saw. And it reminded me, this experience reminded me of what had happened back on the farm when I was a young fellow, just a few years before. Dad had been out ploughing the paddock that was on the very western side of the farm, the last paddock on that side of the farm. Then there was a public road, then there was another farm, and then on the other side of that other farm, and it was only about this paddock, I guess it was about a kilometre, maybe 2 kilometres away. And it was flat line. Dad could see very clearly across to the reserve. There was a bit of a rock there, bush all around it. And while Dad was ploughing, if you've had anything to do with going round and around and around a paddock all day long, just keep going around, you get a bit bored and you're sort of looking out and so on. And Dad picked up that there were eagles flying around. Now, we knew that there were wedge-tailed eagles in the area. There were quite a few of them, actually. And there was apparently a pair of wedge-tailed eagles that kept flying out from the reserve, and they were flying around over his head. They were flying down, landing on the ground, looking for food. Even a kangaroo that had been hit on the side of the road, they were scavenging that. And then he noticed that the eagles, all day this was happening, they kept going back to a particular point on the reserve. So when we came home from school at the end of the day, Dad said to us, hey, on the weekend, we're going to go and find the eagle's nest, because I reckon there's an eagle's nest out there. It must have young in it, because I saw the parent birds kept flying back all day with food. And so we thought, real good. But guess what? The weekend it was raining and we couldn't go. So the next weekend we went. And this is what we found when we got there. Oh, sorry, first of all, no, this is not what we found. This is what I imagined all week I was going to see. Young chicks. Aren't they funny-looking creatures? Look at their crew cuts standing up. And look at this. A bit older, and again, a bit older still. They're not too far away from flying, these particular birds. That's what I was imagining we were going to see in the nest. So Sabbath afternoon came, we all hopped in the farm ute, and Dad had his camera and some rope, and off we went. And we got to a tree as big as this, and a nest that was at least that big. Wedge-tailed eagles make very big nests. And Dad said, okay, who's going up? We all backed away. We didn't want to go up because I don't like heights. That's my excuse. And so eventually Dad managed to get the rope thrown over that limb that you can see sticking out on the side. He threw the rope over and down it came, and then he managed to tie it up in such a way so that he could climb the rope himself, got above the nest, took his camera off, which was around his neck, and took a photograph, what of? An empty nest. They had gone. We were extremely disappointed because we were expecting to see some photos at least. We weren't going to be up there to see them directly ourselves, but we'd see Dad's photos of the young chicks in the nest, but they had gone. And you know, if we had been more careful, we would have known that, because around the bottom of the tree, all the lining of the nest, some wool from sheep, a bit of a skin from a dead rabbit, and there were other bits and pieces that were all scattered around the bottom of the tree. Do you know who did that? The eagle does it. Because when it's time for the chicks to fly and leave the nest, what the eagles do, the parent birds do, is that they come along and they throw all the lining and all the comfort of the nest away as one attempt to try and get them to move off and to start flying. Well, obviously that had happened and the eagles had gone and the babies had gone, and I guess we probably saw them flying around the farm at some stage later, but that was the story. And it reminds me of just before I get to the text, when we think about eagles, usually eagles in our minds are very scary. I mean, look at the size of that eagle there on the left. The feathers down the leg would be enough to frighten anybody, wouldn't they? Great big fat legs. Look at the beak of them. And their eyebrows, they can really stare, they'd be good to stare you out, wouldn't they? But the eagles, they are aggressive-looking birds. But in actual fact, when it comes to how the eagles look after their young, they are very, very kind birds and very caring birds. And that's why we have, here you can see there's a parent bird actually feeding a young baby eagle. And that's why we actually have this verse in the Bible in Deuteronomy 32. And it's talking about when the children of Israel were leaving Egypt and going down into their promise, or going across to their promised land in Canaan. And they were out in the wilderness probably at this time too. And here's this verse that says, it's referring to God, is like an eagle that stirs up its nest. Well, I just mentioned about the eagles that had stirred up the nest by throwing everything out and pushing them on. That's what God was doing. He was pushing them out of Egypt. And then it says, it hovers, referring to the eagle, it hovers over its little ones. It spreads out its wings to catch them. It carries them on its feathers. Now, this is a very interesting statement because the reality is the wedge-tailed eagle does not do what this verse says happens. Few eagles in the world do it. But there have been recorded, isolated cases where they have recorded that an adult eagle pushes its baby off, might be a cliff where the nest was right up high in the cliff, pushes them off the edge of the cliff, and lets them flap their wings and try and catch themselves, and that's how they learn to fly. And then the parent bird will dive down underneath and catch it on its wings. All right? There are records of that actually happening. And I reckon Moses must have seen it while he was minding the sheep for those 40 years out in the wilderness. He must have seen it somewhere because he has likened God's protection to the children of Israel to that of an eagle. So when you see an eagle again, don't think, oh, what a scary bird when you see it on the side of the road eating a dead kangaroo or something like that. Remember the verse in the Bible that says, God is like the eagle who cares for his chicks.